For a couple of hours in 2015, Matt Harvey was at the center of the New York spotlight. That night, the man they called the Dark Knight put the Mets on his back for 8 dominant innings at home in Game 5 of the World Series. Before the 9th inning, the Mets faithful chanted,
giving Harvey, and they're saying, we want Harvey.
This was not the first time Matt Harvey had had success at the big league level. At this point in his career, he'd already started an All-Star game and finished top 5 in Cy Young voting. The Mets had gotten to the World Series on the back of their three-headed monster of aces, Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, and Matt Harvey. As the Mets fans chanted for Harvey in Game 5, the Dark Knight appeared from the dugout for the 9th inning. Over the course of the next 5 minutes, though, the game, series, and Matt Harvey's career would all take a massive turn for the worse. By the time the 2015 World Series came around, trying to finish things in the 9th inning was not a new thing for Matt Harvey. Let's head to Clemson, South Carolina. The date is April 23rd, 2010. North Carolina is led into Doug Kingsmore Stadium by their Friday night starter, junior Matt Harvey. Unfortunately for us, the only highlights of this game that I could find were the ones that Clemson put on YouTube, so we can't see just how good Matt Harvey was in this start. Like he would 5 years later, Harvey came out to pitch the 9th inning, but in this instance, the ace was able to finish the job. His final line in the 5-3 Tar Heel win included 3 runs on 6 hits, but in the complete game, Harvey recorded 15 strikeouts. The number of pitches it took, 156. Harvey ended up throwing 101 strikes in the game. That's a game's workload of pitches in just strikes. For Matt Harvey, though, in college, high pitch counts really weren't all that uncommon. In that season at UNC, Harvey threw 120 plus pitches in 7 of his 14 starts. With those pitches, these were the numbers Harvey was able to put up in his junior season for the Tar Heels. Those numbers, combined with Harvey's stuff, were enough to put him firmly in the first round of the 2010 draft. Still, there were concerns to be had with Matt Harvey's workload. As one scout who was at Harvey's start against Clemson put it, you get a little nervous, quite frankly. I don't know what other word to use. Whatever worries the New York Mets might have had were not enough to keep them from drafting the right-hander with the 7th overall pick. Harvey was the Mets guy, and just as they had hoped, he fell right into their lap. One of their scouts even thought he could be the next Justin Verlander. Matt Harvey would one day draw criticism for getting too caught up in being a New York celebrity. For now, though, he was just the Mets' newest best hope for a frontline ace pitcher. What he told the Mets pitching coach after he got signed, "I'll be ready to pitch for you next year." That 1-year goal was not one that Harvey was able to meet. Instead, he made it to the big leagues in 2. From his first start at the big league level, Matt Harvey dominated. His debut went 5 1/3 innings, giving up no runs on 3 hits and striking out 11. This is against a D-backs team that had a top 10 offense in all of baseball that year. It was just more of the same after that for Matt Harvey through the rest of his rookie season. He threw for a 2.73 ERA and averaged 10.6 strikeouts per 9 in his 10 starts as a rookie. Even Mets manager Terry Collins was surprised by just how good his new young star was, saying, "Holy cow, we were shocked by what we saw." If that season was impressive, it was just an appetizer for what was to come in 2013. People thought that Matt Harvey would be good in 2013. What many didn't realize was just how good. Through the All-Star break in 2013, Harvey had a 2.35 ERA, a 2.16 FIP, and was striking out over 10 batters per 9 innings. For that first half, he was named the starting pitcher of the All-Star game in front of his home fans at Citi Field. In his 2 innings, he gave up no runs, striking out Miguel Cabrera and Jose Bautista in the first and Adam Jones in the second. At the All-Star game, Carlos Beltran told Terry Collins Harvey might be the best he'd ever face. Around this time, the pitcher was making himself into a legitimate New York celebrity. He dated multiple Victoria's Secret models, was featured on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, and was in ESPN's Body Issue. On May 20th, he was the cover of Sports Illustrated, where they dubbed him the Dark Knight of Gotham, a name he adopted quickly. In a July 15th interview with Men's Journal, he was quoted saying he was waiting for a $200 million contract so he could get the nicest apartment in the city. For the the time being at least, this other stuff wasn't keeping Harvey from being one of the best pitchers in baseball. He finished the season with a 2.27 ERA, third in the majors behind just Clayton Kershaw and Jose Fernandez. He ended number 1 in the majors in both FIP and home runs per 9. To his last pitch in 2013, Harvey was up there with any pitcher in baseball. Unfortunately though, his 2013 season ended early. On August 26th, it was announced that Matt Harvey had partially torn his UCL. He tried to rehab the injury, but on October 4th, he underwent Tommy John surgery. Even with missing a month of time, Harvey still finished 4th in NL Cy Young voting for the 2013 season. He was slated to miss all of the 2014 season, targeting a return for 2015.
And there he is, back where he belongs in the center of the diamond.
That's his 2013 season. 36 starts in his career, a modest 12-10 so far in Harvey's young career.
You saw that number at the bottom, the whip from 29. Got him, a beauty by Harvey for the first out. 1-2, struck him out. That's a run from first. And the curveball in there for a call, strike 3.
Winning more innings.
4 over the first 2 1/3. And he takes care of Taylor for the second time. 5 strikeouts through the first 10 batters for Matt Harvey.
Matt Harvey was back. He struck out 9 in his return and from there did not look back. Harvey finished 2015 with a 2.71 ERA, giving him a career mark to that point of a 2.53. His overall numbers were a slight drop-off from his elite level 2013, but were still ace type. Around him, the Mets had built a really good rotation. While their ace had been on the shelf in 2014, Jacob deGrom had come up and become a legitimate star pitcher in his own right. In 2015, rookie Noah Syndergaard came up and also looked like a blossoming young star. Combined, those 3 were the front end of a rotation that finished top 5 in the majors in ERA. That pitching staff led the Mets to 90 wins, first place in the NL East, and a matchup with the LA Dodgers in the NLDS. This is a Dodgers team that, in their own right, featured 2 of the top 3 Cy Young finishers in the National League. Matt Harvey's matchup, Brett Anderson. Out of that Dodger rotation, Matt Harvey's matchup was Brett Anderson. To give Anderson some credit, 2015 was one of, if not the best season of his career. Even with Anderson being a solid pitcher though, this is a matchup that decidedly favored Matt Harvey. In a start where Harvey didn't even really have his best outing, it was still enough to lead the Mets to a 6-run win. On either side of his win in Game 3, the Mets were able to take Games 1 and 5 to advance to the National League Championship Series. On his normal rest, it was Matt Harvey who got the start in Game 1 of that series against the Chicago Cubs.
All-Star in 2013, then had to have Tommy John surgery, missed all of last year, won 13 ball games, including one in the postseason.
Up for the changeup.
The 1-2. 2 up, 2 down, 2 Ks. Steve Wright 3 called. 2-2. And he struck him out. Nobody's gotten the ball out of the infield off Matt Harvey. And here it comes. Strikeout number 5. 2 strikes. Struck him out. He struck him out, and a fist pump from Harvey.
With this start, the statement had been made. Harvey would get knocked out of the game with 2 outs in the 8th after giving up a solo home run to make it 4-2, but at that point, it was too late for the Cubs to make a comeback. In those 7 2/3 innings, Harvey struck out 9 Cubs, setting the tone really for the rest of the series. Syndergaard followed Harvey by striking out 9 in Game 2, deGrom K'd 7 in Game 3, and the Mets took Game 4 to sweep the Cubs. Having just dismantled a 97-win Cubs team, New York headed to Kansas City for Game 1 of the World Series. The Game 1 starter again was Matt Harvey.
Escobar, and he swings and hits it into left center. Back at the track, it is dropped. Cespedes couldn't make the catch. How about that effort? digging around third. Here comes Escobar. 1-0 Kansas City.
Well, that didn't go as expected. After giving up an inside-the-park home run on his first pitch of the game, Harvey settled in to have at least a half-decent outing. Still, the fact that he only struck out 2 was somewhat concerning. Even Harvey himself said, quote, "I didn't feel great. I didn't have my best stuff." The Mets would go down in 14 innings in Game 1, with Harvey's 3 earned earning him a no decision. The next time Harvey got the ball, the Mets were down 3-1. It was Game 5, and Harvey was back on normal rest.
Good start for Harvey. Inning over.
1-1. That showed great patience in the recoveries from Tommy John by Harvey passing the run.
And now 2 out. It's Harvey. Strikeout number 9. 216. In the air to center. Right there, Lagares. How about Matt Harvey?
Every once in a while, something happens in sports where you know that for that moment, that player is the baddest man on the planet. There was an example of this earlier that postseason with Jose Bautista's home run, bat flip, home run trot, and celebration in that year's ALDS. In that moment, there wasn't any doubt that there was not a badder man on the planet than Jose Bautista. I think Matt Harvey's performance in 2015 World Series Game 5 is another example of one of these moments. That night, the Dark Knight was that dude. Going into that game, Matt Harvey was already a star in New York. He was 1 inning away from becoming the star athlete of New York.
Something I have not seen since Game 7, 1991, Minnesota, Jack Morris and Tom Kelly. This began with a long conversation between Dan Worthen, the pitching coach, and Terry Collins. Worthen delivering the bad news, and I'm going to go talk to the boss about this. No way. No way are you taking me out of this game.
Gotta make that man a little anxious right there.
Now Harvey working out of the stretch. Didn't think they would push him.
Kane takes off. Strike 1. Still remaining.
That back takes away a double play. It's a huge play.
A chance here in the 9th inning. The 0-1. That's in the air to left. Up against the wall. One run scores in the top of the second. And that's it for Matt Harvey. And the Royals are doing it to Harvey here in the 9th inning.
In that short time, the entire story of Game 5 took a massive turn. Eric Hosmer would go on to score 2 batters later on a ground ball to third base. Suddenly, Hosmer's unbelievable base running was the play of the game. The game shifted from being Matt Harvey's dominant performance to being the game the Royals won the World Series. Still, there was reason to be optimistic for the Mets heading into the 2016 season. With Harvey, DeGrom, Syndergaard, Steven Matz, Bartolo Colon, and Zach Wheeler, the Mets looked to have the best rotation in baseball. Instead, it ended up being an injury-plagued and disappointing season for the Mets and their rotation. Only 2 of their starters even made it to 25 starts, and the team that some considered the favorites in the National League, didn't even make it out of the wild card game. Outside of Zach Wheeler, whose Tommy John rehab kept him out for the season, perhaps the one hit the hardest by the injury bug was Matt Harvey. After he had blown past Scott Boris's 180-inning limit during the 2015 World Series run, Harvey only made 17 starts in 2016 with a 4.86 ERA before getting shut down. This time, it was thoracic outlet syndrome that ended Harvey's season. As it turned out, Harvey's step back in 2016 looked pretty good next to his performance in 2017. The man who had been a legit ace just a couple of seasons ago now had an ERA pushing 7. As that ERA number went up, the patience for that celebrity lifestyle we were talking about earlier was going down. In May, he got dumped by Adriana Lima, who soon after was seen with her ex-boyfriend Julian Edelman. She then unfollowed Harvey on Instagram, and the Dark Knight didn't show up for the Mets-Marlins game on May 6th, claiming that he had a migraine. The reality was that Harvey had been out at a club celebrating Cinco de Mayo until 4 a.m. the night before. For this, Harvey earned himself a 3-game suspension and was forced to publicly apologize at a press conference. Around this time, Men's Journal did a retrospective on their interview with Harvey from 2013. I kind of glossed over that interview when I was talking about that season, but aside from his way too early contract talk, there were a bunch of things in that interview that now looked like major red flags. During the interview, which was on his start day, Harvey told the interviewer while they went to breakfast and shopping for designer clothes that his preparation was to not prepare, but instead to go out and have fun. He then said that he chose to be a pitcher because it gave him more time off than the other positions. After his start, he said baseball couldn't be the only thing he had going on and that he didn't know what he'd be like if he stayed home and couldn't go out. Even his 48-hour rule from this excerpt seemed to have gone out the window, as the game he missed after his breakup and partying was the game before a start. Going even further than that, the 2017 incident wasn't even the first instance of Harvey being absent. He had missed a mandatory workout during the 2015 postseason, telling his pitching coach that he got caught in traffic and telling Terry Collins he'd lost track of time. Even in 2017 though, the newest incident in the middle of a very disappointing season wasn't enough to end Harvey's time in New York. That one came in 2018 when the pitcher had a 7 ERA and even got himself taken out of the rotation. After getting moved to the bullpen and later released, he's since bounced from disappointing stop to disappointing stop. At times, there's been flashes of someone who could be at least kind of serviceable. He put up a 4.5 in the back half of 2018 with Cincinnati after being released and started off 2021 alright before struggling down the stretch. For the most part though, post-prime Harvey has been pretty rough so far. Right now, the man who they called the Dark Knight is entering his age 33 season. A career renaissance is not out of the question, but at this point it's pretty safe to say that his peak as we knew it has ended. It really ended up turning out that the end of the 8th inning of Game 5 of the 2015 World Series marked the end of Matt Harvey's prime. The fall of Matt Harvey was almost as swift as his rise. It was the sharp, quick, and sudden fall of Matt Harvey.